Hey friends, I hope you're having a great weekend. Justin here with a review of the 1977 Bankin and Rass Hobbit film. So, it's taken me a long time to post this review, and I apologize for my appearance. I can see I look like a homeless hobo, but when I get the passion, it's like let me get on and make the video. So, it's taken me a long time to post this because the Bankenrass Hobbit is such a cozy film for me that it's hard for me to make it through it. And I don't fall asleep because of boredom, but because it's so comforting. Much in the same way, if you guys have ever watched David the Gnome, and some of those Canadian Little Bear and some of those Canadian cozy animated shows, um, they're very, I don't know, you just fall into it and fall into a trance. Anyway, um, this is a very decidedly American adventure, or told from an American perspective. Um, the theme song, "The Greatest Adventure," written and sung by Glenn Yarbrough, um, really sounds like one of those great 1970s, soundtrack songs. It was directed, and produced, so the animation was overseen highly by Arthur Rankin and Julie Bass. So this combines a couple of styles for me that are just a recipe for comfort, for a classic story, and will put me out like a light. um, I'm a huge fan of the 1960s, like claymation, those uh, Christmas claymation movies. This Hobbit film, is animated similarly in that vein and style. So you have that very familiar animation style, which is very detailed. Um, you know, um, Looks very lush and beautiful. And then you have the classic storytelling, of The Hobbit and J.R.R. Tolkien. And so those together, are a recipe for me of, I'm going to love it, but it's going to put me right to sleep. So anyway, I love the pacing of this film. By the end of the opening credits, we've already gotten through the song, and Bilbo is already in the wilderness by the time the greatest adventure, has ended. Um, and they show this fantastic animated rain, which is like catnip for me. Scooby Doo, I think, Escape from Zombie Island, or Scooby Doo on Zombie Island, has similar animation style, and it just makes me so comfortable. Anyway, and I noted here, I wonder if those trolls, the trolls that Bilbo, encounters, if they're any relation to the trolls in Moria, that the troll in Moria that Frodo encounters during the Lord of the Rings. So I was really struck by how empty the world was, because they leave their treasure behind. Can you imagine finding a treasure, a cave treasure, and then saying, leave it behind, we'll come get it on our way back? That was really interesting for me. Um, and even though this was kind of told from an American perspective, um, J.R.R. Tolkien's, excellent writing and writing style, and some of his themes shone through. So, Bilbo's love for map reading, Bilbo's love of literature made him uniquely qualified to decipher the map, in this telling of the story. And what struck me was that J.R.R. was such a proponent of a simple English country life. He was such a proponent of, the simpler things in life, from his perspective. a well-run, English estate in the countryside, horses and what have you. What he thought of as down to earth. And so those skills that Bilbo had from, leading a country life were everything that he needed, heart, body, mind, and soul, in order to be efficient on this journey. Same thing with Frodo, and the great powers of Middle Earth and the great powers that be always go to the Shire for their saviors, and that was an interesting thought for me this time around. I don't know why it hadn't dawned on me before, but J.R.R. is obviously a huge proponent of a simple life. Anyway, guys, it's one of my favorites. It's probably outside of Studio Ghibli. The animated Hobbit is probably the one cartoon as an adult I've watched over and over and over. I really, really loved the focus, and this is what I'll leave you on. This is what was really interesting to me this time around. How long, everything is really fast paced, as I told you. By the end of the credits, we're already in the rain and out in the wilderness. But the scene with Gollum, where they're telling riddles, it's so elongated and so stretched out and so emphasized. And it's so odd that J.R.R. had written that before The Lord of the Rings, so he didn't even know the significance of that scene at the time. Maybe he had a construct in his mind, but he didn't know the full weight of that scene at the time. So the fact that it's drawn out and so dramatized really stood out to me, because the fate or the balance of Middle Earth is based on the scene, is based on a game of chance, based on a game of riddles. So at the end of the day, the balance of good and evil in this world is decided by chance and not by good or evil. Bilbo stole the ring just as well as Smeagol did on the banks of that river. And so morality at the end of the day actually didn't decide the fate of Middle Earth, even though I know that's so much further from this small animated movie. It was just interesting to pause and reflect on that. Have you guys ever watched the 1977 animated Hobbit? It's absolutely one of my favorites. It's an American cozy. I can't get through it, guys, without falling asleep, but it's actually one of my favorites. There was a time in my 20s where I watched it. I got off work, and I would come home and in the evenings watch it every evening to get to wind down, to hear, familiar sounds and familiar themes. So it's one of my favorites. Anyway, guys, what do you think of this film? If you haven't seen it, please check it out and come back and let's talk about it. Leave this video a like, a comment, and please consider subscribing for more movie and TV related content. And as always, guys, I'll see you guys in the next video. Stay safe and cheers.